HotWireFoamCutterInfo.com presents the Small Tabletop Cutter. The small tabletop cutter is meant for any hobby enthusiast and is great for those with limited space. The cutter's base measures around 12 inches by 10 inches in overall size. You may choose any type of wood that is greater than 1/4 inch in thickness, but white laminated shelving works perfectly for this cutter. The underside of the cutting surface is supported using 1/2 inch Schedule 40 PVC components. Here you'll note 4 90-degree elbows and 2 T-couplers. There is around 2 feet of total PVC tubing connecting these components. The underside electrical assembly is similar to other components shown previously. It uses a 10-24 stove bolt that is no greater than 3 inches in total length. It also uses 4 washers, a locking nut, a regular hex nut, and a wing nut. The overarm assembly uses soft copper tubing to serve as structural support and also an electrical connection to the power supply. It is connected to the underside PVC support using a thumb screw. This allows for the overarm assembly to be pivoted and supply angled cuts. The thumb screw will need to be at least 1.5 inches in length, but not to exceed 3 inches. Ideally, the thumb screw will go through the T-coupler to provide maximum support to the overarm assembly. The 10-24 thumb screw will require 3 washers and 1 wing nut. But remember that a ring terminal for electrical attachment will also be on this assembly. At the top of the overarm assembly, you may opt to include metal components to attach the nichrome wire. But the notched method is a simple and effective option and is shown in this tutorial. Start by measuring the plank of wood, as you'll be cutting the PVC tubing to fit. This measures approximately 12 inches by just over 11 inches. When you lay out your PVC components, you will want the T-couplers offset from the middle. Around 1 to 1.5 inches is ideal. When measuring for the PVC tubing, measure about halfway into the PVC component. Here, we'll require pieces at 2 inches, 4 inches, and 7 inches in length. Take a length of PVC tubing and mark your measured length. Using a ratcheting cutter or a hacksaw, cut 2 pieces of PVC to size. Then repeat these steps for all remaining lengths of PVC tubing. Take all PVC components and perform a dry fitting. If satisfactory, move on to the next steps, otherwise trim as necessary. Using PVC primer and cement, connect all PVC components. Start by connecting the T-couplers to one another. As with any PVC project, start by priming each of the surfaces and then apply the glue. Then be sure that they are straight and flush by pounding into the underlying surface. This ensures that the 2 sides are parallel, because if they're not, your cutter will wobble during use. Then prime and glue all remaining PVC components and ensure that they are flush and properly angled. Once assembled, you will need to mark the supports for attachment. The goal is to have the supports flush with the back of the cutter, which is located on the right side of the screen. Measure again to make sure that the support bar is offset from the center of the cutter. You may want to drill a single hole for future reference, that way you don't have to keep remeasuring. Later, you'll use this drilled hole to attach the supports to the wooden surface. Now you'll need to mark the wood and PVC components where you'll want to pass the nichrome wire. You can place it wherever you'd like, but ideally around 2/3 the distance from the back is best. Here, it's about 7 inches. Secure the PVC pipe and drill in a plane that would be horizontal to the cutting surface. Here, it's mounted vertically, so we're drilling vertically. Remember to start off slow so that the drill bit doesn't slide off mark. Then back at the cutting surface, be sure to mark the wood where the drilled hole is placed. With the wood secure partially off of the workbench, start by drilling a hole vertically. Once through both sides, angle the drill side to side to create a wide opening for the nichrome wire. Then clean out the drilled hole with a metal file and clean up the cutting surface of any loose debris. Drill guide holes and place 1-inch wood screws to attach the support to the wooden surface. Now take your electrical connection wire and place the ring terminals. Start by splitting and stripping the wire, then place a ring terminal and crimp in place, repeating for the other lead. To help prevent the ring terminal from dislodging during use, pass one ring terminal between the wooden surface and the support bar. Then screw the support bar into place, which should pinch the wire securely. You'll now need all metal components for the underside assembly. Take the stove bolt, 4 washers, and all related nuts. With this cutter, we're using a nylon locking nut to secure the stove bolt to the support bar. Take the stove bolt and pass one washer, then the ring terminal, and slide through the support bar. Place one more washer and then the nylon locking nut. These nuts are a little more difficult to place, but there are a variety of methods. Using a wrench and a screwdriver, you can advance the stove bolt onto the locking nut. Then finish tightening by hand. Then place the regular hex nut, 2 washers, and the wing nut. For the final component, we will need to attach the overarm assembly, which is made from soft copper tubing. The overarm should have a gradual bend but does not need to be precise. You will need to make sure that it extends out far enough to reach the drilled hole, but not so much tubing that it extends beyond it. Even before you cut the tubing, you can bend and shape for optimal effect. You can use a hacksaw, but taking a small pipe cutter, cut the tubing at your measured mark. Take note that as the cutter is turned around the tubing, it is slowly advanced to make a deeper cut into the metal. Since we are using the notched method with this cutter, we will need to make a few passes with the pipe cutter towards the end of the tubing. At the vise, we will need to compress the base of the tubing. Remember that it will be attaching to the back of the T-coupler. Orient the tubing properly so that it is not angled off mark once attached to the cutter. Then replace into the vise and drill a hole slowly into the copper tubing. Then recompress the copper tubing to press down the rough edges. Place the other end of the assembly into the vise and cut partially through the tube with a fine-toothed hacksaw. Align the overarm with the cutting surface and mark the T-coupler to drill for the metal components. In a horizontal plane, drill a hole through the T-coupler. For reference, this hole should be offset from the center. Now attach the overarm assembly. Take the thumb screw and place a washer. Then the ring terminal, another washer, and then the copper tubing. Slide the assembly into place, then overturn the table. You may not have enough room for the last washer in the diagram, but that's not a problem. Ideally, you want the thumb screw near the T-coupler so that it will hold the wing nut in place. That way, you can tighten or loosen the thumb screw without having to manually manipulate the wing nut. Now attach the nichrome wire to the underside bolt assembly. Be sure to place the nichrome wire between the two washers before you advance the wing nut. Then pass the nichrome wire through the table's base and turn the table right side up. You can feel free to wrap the nichrome wire around the support arm as you choose, but be sure to pull the wire under tension before attaching it to the overarm assembly. The rigidity of the copper tubing will provide tension as the nichrome wire heats during use. If necessary, you can bend the copper tubing to provide a bit more tension. Now for a little cable management. Bind the excess wire together with some electrical tape. Then wrap some of the wire around one of the support legs, making a few passes. Finishing up by taping the wire down with electrical tape. This cutter will be attached to a power supply using two male snap bullet connectors. Split and strip the wires, place the bullet connector and crimp in place. Repeat for the other terminal. And now for a quick demonstration to make sure everything is in proper working order. And remember, you can use the rear thumb screw to loosen the overarm assembly for angled cuts. But don't hesitate to bend the copper tubing if you require more tension on your nichrome wire. The underside assemblies are easy to assemble, but remember to keep them oriented in relation to the overarm assembly and the nichrome wire. And there you have it, the small tabletop cutter, ideal for all hobby uses. And thank you for watching. Check out all related diagrams on hotwirefoamcutterinfo.com.